Welcome back to Education Matters. Did you correctly answer D, 63%? Between 1970 and 2014, the percentage of North Carolina adults with some college rose from 19% to 63%, which now sits slightly above the national average. Now we're going to continue our discussion about My Future NC with Kristy Teskey, the Executive Director of the Commission, and Dale Jenkins, Co-Chair of the My Future NC Commission. So I want to ask you a couple questions. One area that has been, it's been criticized or sort of at least questioned about this commission, but also others, is the issue of poverty and the impact. I mean, I think you were just in Elizabeth City this week. Eastern North Carolina, historically, if you grew up here, has been an area that has lagged the rest of the state for a long time. But is this something that, I guess, and I'll ask both of you, is this something that you're aware of, this sort of, you can have more communication between community colleges and not, but is there a concern that we also need to make sure we're understanding the impact of poverty on our citizens?
I think that's a very important topic. Certainly one of the reasons that I wanted to get involved with this commission is because we have an income inequality gap in this country. And there's lots of documentation that would support that, and clearly one of the issues behind that is the disparity in education. So what we're trying to do is make sure every kid in North Carolina has an opportunity to have an education. So I couldn't agree more. Education also is a broader topic than just what goes on in the classroom. Right. So it becomes much more important what goes in the home, what goes on in the community. So that's the goal also that we have, is to look just outside, not just in the classroom, but look outside the classroom and talk about what are the issues that are going to be important, really to holistically educate a child so that they can find their way out of poverty.
Right. Kristy, you mentioned a couple of the things, like you mentioned the silos and some of the lack of the content. But are there some biggest challenges that are kind of already apparent? I mean, that you already, I guess maybe the commission already knows, or at least it became pretty great. So what are some of those sort of common challenges that you think, all right, we're going to probably end up having to do something here?
Right. I think to build off of the question you just asked around poverty is our demographic shift that we're seeing in our younger populations, in that 0 to 5 population. We're seeing a higher percentage of low income. It happens to be a population that we have not done a great job in educating when we think about the education all the way to and through. When we see the gap and disparities, we see those by income and we see those by race. So we do need to address all of that. I think coordination, and not just within the education system, but with other systems like health and human services, and making sure that education systems can educate, and that we can also look at the whole child issues because of partnerships with other departments within communities. And I think that is important. This idea of information, transparency, accessibility, all of that is coming up in everything that we're hearing in our listening sessions right now of challenges of if it's college access, if it's access from preschool to kindergarten, making sure that students get really from that one place to the other. We underestimate the importance of making sure that the communication lines are open, but that students and parents, going back to what Dale was saying, very important that they are aware, they're engaged, and that they're part of the solution and not just told what to do.
That's a good point. Dale, as a business leader, you're a CEO of a large company. You and I were talking right before we started about the skills gap. Right. Nation at risk. I mean, it's been more than 30 years, so I guess, in some ways it feels like we keep saying we're a nation at risk, but it's also been 30 years, and we've been saying that businesses can't find skilled workers. Yeah. And so I guess as a business person, do you see that? I mean, is that talking to, I guess, your peers, and is this part of, or how is that going to inform this work of the commission?
I think that is a really big issue. I chaired the North Carolina Chamber in 2016. One of the top issues that CEOs and businesses were facing all across our state was the inability to find qualified workers. If you read the headlines, Amazon is looking for a new headquarters. What are they looking for? They're looking for 50,000 skilled laborers. Apple is looking for skilled laborers. Toyota Mazda, when they were looking to come to North Carolina, they were looking for skilled workers. So without question, our economy is going to depend on having that workforce that is trained and able to take those jobs of the future. You know, we look into the future. Futurists are saying today that if you look at 2030, there's a great number of jobs that haven't been created yet. We've got to anticipate what some of those issues are going to be in terms of the training that's going to be required. And as a business community, we've got to engage with education. I think that's one of the missing links that we've had over the years, is that we in the business community have just sat back and sort of accepted the product that the education system has sent to us. And in some communities, there's been a good linkage between some companies and particularly community colleges about technical training. But for the most part, the business community has been accepting of the fact that we've been getting students that may not be as qualified as we need. We have to engage more. We have to roll up our sleeves, get in the trenches, work with educators so that we can solve that workforce gap. It's critical for our state. It's the right thing to do for our citizens.
Like you said, not just point it out, but get involved, right? And these things.
And not just in the older populations in post-secondary, but also younger in elementary and middle school as well.
All right, well, so what does success look like to you?
I think if we can get a comprehensive plan that is agreed upon. So we have all of the key stakeholders, leaders, players from across the state at our table. Can we agree upon a post-secondary attainment goal and the benchmarks and targets from preschool all the way through that align? And can we get the workforce in agreement with that as well? So that's the first thing. The next thing is, will communities support that? As well as our legislature. You know, when we say a statewide goal, this isn't owned by anyone right now. We get that question a lot.
You can't dictate it, right?
That's right. No one owns this process right now. It is the state's process. And so then how do we make sure that it becomes owned by the state at large?
Great.
And so it's a big goal and one that we keep shooting for even as we're planning right now.
Well, good luck with everything going forward. We're going to keep checking in with you. We want to find out. And also, when we go to commercial, people who are watching will be able to see how they can engage and get involved with you. So thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. After the break, this week's Leadership Spotlight.